All right, welcome back. Now joining me is Gikonyo Gitonga, a director at the Kenya Property Developers Association and chair of the KEPSA Lands and Planning Sector Board. Gikonyo, thank you so much for joining me this evening. My first question to you, and I'll tie it in with a tweet from Alexander Kimani saying, why would they make promises they can't keep? People struggle to look for money to set up a home. Taking advantage of their need to own a home for your own growth is selfish and inhumane. People are wondering, just how did this go the way it did? What went wrong in the Banda home scenario, in your view?
I must say that, you see, there are different people who have got different intentions when they go into property developments. There are people who are honest and sincere and wish to develop and deliver a home to people. There are very many people who out there who are looking for a home, and you could see that they're being attracted to the allure that they will be able to own a home for about 4 million or 4.5 million. But they have to you have to sit back and look and say, was it really possible that a home can be able to be delivered at that price? Taking into consideration land prices, consideration cost of construction. And when you look at that, you then, if you put the maths together, you might find it will be very difficult to have actually delivered those houses. The next thing that when people are going into these developments, when you're going to invest in such a development, you need to do your due diligence. You need to do your diligence on the company that is doing the development, the people who are doing the development, and also trying to see what else have they done? What is their track record in having delivered houses of this nature? Clearly, what's happened is that some developers are trying to develop using other people's money. So some of the developers actually don't have any money and are trying to use other people's money, deposits, installment payments to develop. And if one thing goes wrong, the other, and there is a hitch or a delay in people paying, then the developer maybe does not have the money to even continue. So you must be very careful about who you're choosing, which developer, who is the developer behind it.
Right. And, just to go back to that issue of due diligence, because I know a lot of people will be asking, it's Frank Orindo, I beg your pardon, on Twitter saying, Banda Homes controversy has made me develop cold feet. He said he was on a path to owning a home, speaking to his financial institution. In a case like this, a lot of people are coming into a deal like this with fear. How do you advise someone like that after seeing this controversy with Banda Homes?
First of all, there are a lot of developers, there are some developers who will sometimes advise you that you don't need your own legal advisor. As an investor, that's one mistake you should never make. No matter, to always have your own legal advisor, have a property expert or an registered estate agent. There are a lot of agents around town, but get a proper registered estate agent who will give you advice and who is selling the property. When you're looking at such developments, you also want to be able to, your lawyer will be able to do a due diligence to ensure that that the developer has got all the approvals, that the land has actually been acquired, that the land there is proper approvals for the development, and ensure that there is a proper agreement put in place. And from what's happened, maybe the agreements, the buyers did not look at keenly into the agreements.
So how should developers ideally then approach projects like this, affordable housing models, for instance, like what you mentioned? If they don't count the cost prior, they may not be able to deliver on the homes, therefore putting them in a very bad position with investors. But how should they approach this segment of real estate?
You see, this segment of real estate is, and I think we've got to be very careful here that a few developers might spoil the name of very genuine developers. But you've got to look at the cost of infrastructure, the cost of land, you've got to look at financing costs. And if those factors have not been taken into consideration carefully, then there will be cost overruns, and the client, the developer, might not be able to deliver at his price that he had promised. So when you look at affordable housing, the challenge is how do you make the balance of all these costs, land costs, financing costs, infrastructure costs, which can be quite, and the cost of construction. So when you look at that and the size of the house, it's very difficult that for a developer to be able to actually deliver a house at less than 50,000 shillings per square foot. So you look at the houses, if you're an investor, use that just as a rule of thumb and try and see, is the developer actually meeting his cost, or is he misrepresenting what he can deliver?
Right. I see a question here from Mofa saying, what's your take on the government Bomayangu initiative? And I guess this is tying in that whole issue between affordable housing and social housing. What's the difference between the two, and what's your take on that particular initiative?
Okay, the social housing is actually being defined under the affordable housing program as those houses that are below the price of 600,000. So usually that would be 600,000. So affordable housing has been defined as ranging between 1 and 3 million. My view is that the affordable housing, you could be looking not only at from a cost of the sale price, but also what is the income level that you are trying to target. So social housing is looking at an income of less than 15,000 per person, or joint incomes of the family that would be that's below. That's what is called social housing. But affordable housing is much bigger than that. With regard to Bomayangu, obviously there is been a lot of interest there. There are over 200,000 people who have already registered in Bomayangu, and I think what we're still waiting to see is the houses that will be put on this platform and that will be available for sale to individuals who wish to buy. So it's still work in progress. The government has done one project so far, which they put in on the affordable housing, and they have completed about 200 houses so far. But it's still work in progress, and we still wait to see. So I wouldn't quite comment too much about that at the moment.
All right, Gikonyo, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for your insights, and hopefully they get to the bottom of this issue. Of course, at the end of the day, it's to put more Kenyans in their own homes. On that note, let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. Sports news up next.